Good afternoon, villagers. This is Deepak from Bangalore, and I got my man here, Sean.
Welcome, everybody. Sean Cummings from the village in Oklahoma. That's the actual name of a town. So I'm like a villager's village guy. How's everything going over there?
Good. I've decided just to address everybody as villagers these days.
That works. I always say the village community when I'm doing like robocalls and stuff. I always call her, "Hey, village community, it's Sean Cummings." I know I sound crazy when I do it too. So yeah, not bad.
We are expecting a cyclone.
Oh, God. Well, that's better than the thunderstorm that I was worried about. Tell me what that actually means. So if Americans are listening to this, we've never had a cyclone.
I actually had to look that up because I was trying to figure it out myself. It basically is that if hurricanes develop, like they start in the North Atlantic and Pacific, I guess. But if they start in the South Pacific and the Indian Ocean, then they're known as cyclones.
Interesting. Do they spin the opposite way, kind of like stuff in Australia?
Probably. Well,
you know, whenever anybody,
Sean, I didn't really fucking deep dive into it.
Okay, so here's what you'll hear from anybody Irish that goes to Australia. Like, you know, the water in the loo goes backwards. That's the most fascinating thing in the world. Which way the water spins in a toilet. How sad is that?
They got on a machine that flew them through the sky and dropped them off on a different continent. None of that shit, huh?
None of that mattered. Water spun the opposite way. Welcome to my people.
Mm-hmm. Before you ask, I am drinking coffee and not chai.
And I have regular tea, not chai. Just tea instead of chai tea. Do you want to explain what that means to everybody?
God damn it. I still get annoyed when I see. Do you know the Starbucks down the road from me has something called chai tea? And I wanted to call them and be like, hey, listen, I can understand why you're doing this in other countries. We know chai means tea. Just say tea latte, we'll understand.
Okay, since we're on the coffee tea subject, so my family resides in and around an area called Galway in Ireland. It's on the west coast. And all they ever had was Sanka. Do you know what Sanka is? The instant coffee?
Yeah.
Worldwide, Sanka seems to be known, and it tastes like prison coffee. Well, it's not that I have a great judgment of prison coffee. That's what I imagine prison coffee to taste like. So you put a scoop of it in with hot water and stir it. Tastes like shit. So I get to Ireland long after coffee has come to America, where we've got decent coffee and everything, and they're still on Sanka. But 5 years later, Polish people that have emigrated there opened the first real coffee place. And there's a damn line going outside there every single day.
Seriously?
But it took an outsider to come in and open it.
Yeah, but I wonder if most Indians would actually know what Sanka is. I probably know about it because of, you remember Marty, God bless his soul? He was the one who used to tell me
Marty,
about it.
yeah.
Yeah,
Did he
was the one
stuff?
who once told me about it.
Wow. Yeah, especially in a rural area where you couldn't get anything. But, you know, evidently Enid, Oklahoma was a big drop for wholesale coffee. I have no idea why, but yeah, crazy.
Now it's just meth.
Yeah, right. Well, you got to sell what they want. You know, it's just business.
Go where the demand takes you.
I'm going to get no votes in Enid for that one.
I'm sorry. I actually knew a guy from there when I went to UCO.
Yeah. Well, so and this may be funny to people listening or not. Enid literally had some restaurant owner that was evidently quite racist and in a really, really bad way. And they wrote about it in the newspaper and everything else. He was like, so what? Don't come eat here. Literally, no apologies, no change in behavior, nothing. And I was like, that's why nobody moves there. Because the only thing that keeps that going is there's an Air Force base near there where we train people from other countries. And they come in. So they've really got a big mix. You just wouldn't guess it. And then that guy gave him a really, really, really bad name. The One Good Steakhouse. Yeah. I'll have to give you a side of racism with that today, sir. Would you like your racism in the ketchup or in the soda?
What was that horrible restaurant somewhere in Texas that got into trouble where the waitress got fired because she wrote on the board outside, "We like our beer like we like our violence domestic."
Okay, now, so we can't make those kind of jokes. Do you know when I filled out my paperwork to go to India, they asked me if I'd ever joked about terrorism.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I literally was like,
I remember you asking me about this.
As an Irish person, am I supposed to say yes, or am I just supposed to say what they want me to say?
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, and it was in depth for people in India. For me to get into the country, and I understand, nobody wants domestic terrorists, although we have quite a few here. We'll loan them to you if you want them. But doing the paperwork, how many times did I call you? I had to call you at least 5 times and go, what does this mean? What do they mean by this question? Which tells me how to answer it. Because, they weren't saying, are you part of a terrorist organization? But the way they were saying it was pretty solid, but I own an Irish pub, and we make jokes about the English every single day, no matter what. We just do. We're meaner about it than you guys.
Sean, what do you think the people in India do when we talk about the British?
I'm sure it's so complimentary. They were so awesome to you guys. So awesome.
We're always looking at the crown going like, lovely diamond. I wonder where they got that from.
Yeah. Wonder what the story is behind that. Would it be like a 7-year-old child they took it from? Yeah, it's brutal. Okay, what were we going to talk about today, sir?
Oh, I wanted to talk to you about the fantasy sport applications. Have you ever played on any of those stupid things or heard about people talking about it at the pub?
Do you know how old I am?
I know.
Okay, so
half the times I get on the phone to help you with shit.
Right. If stuff freezes up and I can't get a hold of one of my kids, I call you. How many thousands of miles away?
I know.
So I have never played any of them. They are huge business, and yes, people in here do. And so they have meetups to talk about like fantasy football and stuff, which is real. It's the most abstract thought we can probably accomplish here. And if they could only apply that to business, we might still be the #1 country in the world as far as manufacturing and everything else went. But instead, we've put all of that into fantasy football and whatnot.
Oh, yeah. I've seen people sit with those spreadsheets at the pub next to me, and I'm like, what is that? And they're like, oh, this is a fantasy thing at the office. And I was like, Jesus Christ. Do you know the problem is that now I came back here and I see people do that here because they finally made that legal here for cricket.
Wow. Oh, no way.
Yes.
Seriously, on cricket? So here's the thing that I would say from a business perspective, wherever you work, if the big boss smokes, you better fake like you smoke. And that's how you get your 5 minutes alone with them. As they come in and go, hey, you want to go outside and smoke? You're like, oh, sure. And you don't have to actually smoke, just fake it. But if the big boss plays fantasy football, you got to figure out a way to get in that room with them. And I think it's important to just understand sometimes it's the dumbest stuff. And I was always lucky because I could talk to people about food, and all of us will talk about food. Go back to the English. They went all over the world killing people everywhere to find out where the spices were, but didn't learn how to cook with them. I mean, God almighty, what a waste. But if you think of that, you've got to find that thing in common. And it's a study. I mean, if you want to meet, I'll give you as an example as a girl, because Deepak has always joked about Americans are a little more promiscuous than Indians. I mean, I wouldn't say we're not. But as a young man, the way I had game is I would find out whatever they like to eat and then just approach them with it and go, have you ever had that? Have you ever had it homemade? Because I actually know how to make it. And I'd learn how to make the stuff. It works. I mean, what is your angle? You know what I mean? What is your angle? Because when I first met you, you wore a suit every single day in Oklahoma, even when it was 105 degrees.
8 years, Sean. That's why now nobody really gives a shit about what I'm wearing when I talk to them.
Yeah, but you've also got the accent to back it up. Somebody in a cheap suit with a terrible accent, it doesn't pull off the same way.
And I had to compensate for the fact that I hated fucking golf. I was never going to playing it.
Okay, so here's the problem I have with golf. The people who play it, I just go, how do you have 6 spare hours to spend
Oh
with
yeah.
one person chasing a little ball around? And then on top of it, I'm so damn competitive, I don't want to lose. And guess what?
Yeah.
If you're with your boss, you're gonna have to lose. You got to make them feel better. It's literally like a
Yeah.
wife from the 1950s. It's awful. Absolutely awful. What were
Oh,
we talking about? Fantasy sports. I
fantasy
don't
sports.
know.
Do you
I
know they're
don't
using that?
know.
Do you know they're using that same stupid loophole that the DraftKings and all those stupid companies use there, where it's not gambling because it is considered a skill-based game, but it requires skill to play it apparently. I'm
Wow.
like, how many people are
Well,
sitting in fucking front of spreadsheets and fucking gaming the whole system out, and how many idiots are just wandering around going like, I'm gonna pick this guy because I heard his name.
right. I got to be honest with you. I think I would go to Chat GBT and go, who do I need a trainer? Who do I need to have? I'd cheat
We
through the
should
whole
try that,
thing.
right?
I bet you money you could come up with a great team. But the deal is okay, think of we as we learned from international soccer that like
Mm-hmm.
over half the games were thrown.
Yeah.
Literally thousands of games were thrown. If these guys can hit a bottle cap from 20 yards away, do you really think they missed a goal at the end of the game? Honestly.
That's true.
Right. I mean, it is that's what you're really up against is whatever that whole thing is. So you're familiar with the term game theory, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Okay,
One of my
does
favorite
it
theories.
right? But how does that fit into this fake sports gaming? How does any of that? You got to look at it and go, okay, so somebody's got a theory behind it and how it operates and how it works and where you're going.
See, when they analyze the DraftKings, because there's enough data with those companies because they started so
Yeah.
long back, that
Right.
they realize that there's probably like 2 to 3% of people on the platform who are the
Yeah.
consistent winners on every damn thing. The
Right.
rest are just in there losing their shit.
So it's a casino.
Mm-hmm. It's like
Right.
if you
But
know how to read cards, I guess.
right. Right. Well, and if you look at it and go, you only need a few people out there saying how great it is to keep it
Mm-hmm.
going.
Oh yeah.
And somebody to go on TV and go, I made $40,000, and everyone goes, man, I'd love to make $40,000. I love it.
Oh
And they're
shit!
in.
Here they actually have like the current cricket players and like huge Bollywood stars in the adverts,
Oh
just
wow.
trying to trick people into coming in there for the glamour of it or whatever the fuck people find fascinating.
So we did that with the extra companies that came out of Bitcoin. And all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden, if you've got a basketball player that literally moved on to the pros in 11th grade and can't read, telling you what you should invest in, it's too late. If you weren't in on the beginning, it's too late when your favorite sports player, the guy who takes hits in the head for a job, is telling you who to invest in.
Mm-hmm.
That's sad. That's both sad and terrible all at the same time.
That would be like us
Wow.
both. That would be like getting Mike Tyson to run a business and be like, okay, come
Right.
on, you've had enough concussions, so you would be able to guess this damn thing.
Oh my God. It is so true. It's sad. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so I'll tell you another layer of this whole thing. So a lot of companies have basketball teams that play at like the YMCA.
Mm-hmm.
You know that people are actually hired to be on that team and just given shitty jobs that pay 50 or 60,000 a year just so they can beat their person from the other side of town and whatever
Oh
business is.
shit!
So they have,
Used to. I've seen that with
yeah,
companies. Like
uh-huh, right,
we have corporate cricket leagues here where there would be like
right,
some random player who's like playing for the Indian team who would also be
right,
playing for that particular bank, and you'd be like, sorry, what the fuck is
yeah,
going on
yeah.
here?
Where'd they get him? Right, right. So I always find there is some weird correlation between popularity in sports in high school and it goes on through the rest of your life. And you got to figure
Oh
out some
God.
way to, right. I don't even like to bore myself with that, but if my customers are talking about it, I got to know about it.
Oh shit! There was one time where Dan told me about this guy who used to play football in high school, and he
Yeah.
showed up to like their 50th year reunion with a football
Right.
in his arm.
Oh Lord.
I was like, oh my God, you peaked in high school sports and this is all you're fucking doing for the rest of your life.
That's all you have. Right. That's all you But it probably worked for him back in the day, and if people still remembered him. So there was a guy who sold X CAT scan machines, and they were about $800,000 each. I don't know what that equates to, but hopefully people will do the math. And he would bring this famous football coach from here with him on all of his appointments, and he'd give the guy $1,000 cash a day to go with him. But every appointment he went to straight into the boss because they wanted to meet the football coach.
That's smart.
Right. So your cricket players, everybody else that's doing that stuff, they're the same theory, but this guy just did it on a really small level. And if you think on 800 grand, who cares about $1,000? Right.
But I do feel bad for some of those cricket players who are like some of the great, like old school batsmen who have come out of retirement and now they're selling chewing tobacco on TV. I'm like, oh, Jesus, who was your business manager? How do you need money at this age still?
I'll tell you the worst. As a weird transition here, the worst audition I ever went on in my entire life. I get a call from my agent and they're like, hey, you need to do this at 11. And it's one of the rare times I didn't ask and go, what's it for? And I show up, it is a used car commercial, literally used, not cars, used cars. And they always have like some clown out in the parking lot going, hey, we got this and you can get free credit in this. So I look at the script and I've wasted an hour of my life. So I go in there and I knock it out of the park. I do the craziest stuff I can come up with. And the guy's like, man, you'd be fantastic. And go, dude, I would never do this in my entire life. I was just showing you what acting is. That is what acting is. Called my agent and I was like, man, what are you doing? He goes, oh, it had a different company name, which is probably BS. He just wanted his 18%. Lovely, lovely people.
Just the commission.
Exactly. Everybody's got to pay the rent.
Last evening, I was tempted to go to the KFC to get some fried chicken, and then I realized that there's a Popeyes across the street from me.
Very much better. At least it has flavor. And from an Indian, you should be ashamed that you were going into KFC.
I know. It's embarrassing. I feel like I look
Let
like
me-
one of
let
those
me-
weirdos with a ball cap and a hoodie. I'm like, nobody see me.
Right. So let me tell you a good fake news story with KFC. So they used to be known as Kentucky Fried Chicken. This old cracker from Kentucky literally went around and he would show people how to fry chicken with his secret recipe. Now, you guys are the spice country of the entire world. So he says there's 11 herbs and spices in there. I can taste about 3. And I'm guessing I'm probably pretty close. But it turns us into this huge, huge company in his later life, like in his 60s. Here's the deal, though. So they switch it. They get bought out by, I believe it's PepsiCo, the people who make Pepsi.
They have it now.
Right. And they change it to KFC. And the paranoia fake news that came out of that was they no longer serve chicken. They make it with this other stuff and they mold it to look like a chicken egg and make it look like a chicken leg and a chicken thigh, but there ain't no chicken in there. If they don't have chicken in the name, it don't have to be chicken.
If I hear some idiot in Bangalore repeat the story to me, I'll know it's because of you.
Right. But this was the first time in my life, and it was a decade ago at least, that I ever heard where we've been pretty lucky until Donald Trump came around. We didn't have heavy fake stuff, but this was the best one I've ever heard, and it was probably from a competitor of theirs, and it's called a whisper campaign. Are you familiar with whisper campaigns over there? Okay.
I guess it's pretty similar to me doing a WhatsApp campaign with that exact script you just gave me to make KFC look like shit.
and you dirty them up, and you know full well that people that are probably lower on the educational realm would go, man, they're at lunch and they're like, man, did you read that shit about KFC? Yeah, they even got chicken over there. They took chicken out of the name so they didn't have to have chicken. And that shit would spread like wildfire.
Pretty sure there are some guidelines to me doing that on WhatsApp, but Jesus, you should see some of the shit my mom asked me to read. I'm like, oh my God, where do you get this from?
So do you get like the daily delivery? Because what I used to get was a daily delivery of stuff, and I would write people back and I'd go, you Google that? I mean, because I think 5 lines down, you can see that that's been debunked already. And they were like, why would I do that? And I go, oh, so we didn't have to have this conversation. That's why. So how big of an issue is that there still? Because I think our news over here is pretty screwed, period. Now,
yeah.
Throughout that entire campaign. And you know, I mean, the Brits were the first that were great at doing the smears. You know, they're pretty good at it. Okay, I've got really bad weather coming in case we cut out. So just be prepared. Fine. All right. Sorry, go ahead.
I have a feeling that it is still bad here, but I wouldn't know because WhatsApp is so like weird where you can actually get an article in a different language. Some of the languages I know, but some of them I don't even read. So I wouldn't know what it is. I would just look at the picture and be like, I don't know what this is, but somebody could probably tell me. And you know me and my stupid brain, I would just go back to the Guardian's website and see if something shows up similar to this. And if I don't see it, I'm like, fuck it. No point in looking at it.
Well, I think what I always try to point out with my family. So I've been a cameraman on documentaries, and documentaries are from the angle of the camera person. You are getting their view. And most falsely written articles are not somebody's view. It's on purpose. So you and I could go to a website like Canva and come up with a fake newspaper setup, and then literally go to AI, throw everything in there we want. They write us an article. Boom. We say whatever we want to anybody. And then if you don't have to go through a place with an editor, that would be the internet, you can tell anybody anything you want. That's so scary. I mean, it really, how would you feel like if somebody in your family did something crazy because of something they read, and then you find out it's all false? God.
Yeah, that would. I've read like articles here in the newspaper where, yes, I still get a physical newspaper to this house.
Wow, you're still killing trees. You're still killing trees.
Well, they tell me it's recycled paper. Damn it.
Hopefully, it wasn't toilet paper. There you go.
No. Yeah, you'll read like these weird articles where you have like some of them are just rubbish where they say that this guy killed that guy, so there would be like a little mob that goes and beats him up, like but with no proof, nothing. It's just a WhatsApp message that came in.
Yeah, that's how lynching started in America.
See the fake news thing, I think anytime it takes place in the West, especially like the US and the UK, the guys here are like, okay, hold my beer, we got this. And they'll take it and run. But there is a time delay between from when I see it there and when I see it here.
Huh. Interesting. How long do you think it takes?
A couple of years for it to be full-fledged, normal part of pop culture. Like, think about it, the same example of those stupid fantasy games.
Right.
It took like 5 years before I got back here, and now it was all over the place and everybody knew about it. But back then, when we were looking at doing something like DraftKings here, it was still considered illegal. So we couldn't do anything.
Wow. Huh. Dang. How crazy. Yeah, I don't know how all that stuff circles around and then it just burns out. So if I'm in Ireland, I'll give you my weird example. People would go, hey, we should go to this restaurant chain and go eat a burger. It's just like McDonald's. And I'd be like, yeah, I don't eat at McDonald's. And they'd go, no, it's just as good. And I'm like, that's a relative term. I don't eat it. But they were still in love with this theory that America was the greatest place on earth to go and everything was there and all that. And so maybe you guys are still following that line. And I don't know if it goes, British West or American West, whichever end you.
I think right now it's probably a mixture, considering that we have exported ourselves to both countries in massive amounts.
Yeah, you guys have done better than the Mexicans, and they've done pretty well.
Maybe that's why India doesn't have any Olympic medals, because we're all just studying and going somewhere.
Right. Hey, it worked. You guys are the highest income earners, I know, in the state of Oklahoma for a specific ethnic target market. You guys are the highest earners.
Is it because most of them are doctors that I run into?
Well, most of them are recruited rather than just. Well, I'll give you an example. So in the hometown in Galway in Ireland, The doctors are mostly African. They're not Irish.
Oh.
And they do stand out a bit in a country of really, really, really pasty pale white people. But everybody loves them because they're doctors. And I would say the same thing here. Most everybody's really, really well educated. So, you know, here's a good story for you. So I'm talking to this kid named that ran for city council. His name doesn't matter. And we're talking about prejudice. And he's Vietnamese. And he goes, you know, I run into it sometimes. And I said, God, do you want me to give you my weird opinion on this? He goes, you know, sure. And I said, it's the opposite of what you think. It isn't that Americans hate you. They're intimidated by you because they assume when you walked into the room, you're the smartest person in the room. And they have to figure out now how to be able to compete when they've only gone to 12th grade.
Wait, when I walk into a room and I see the white jaws drop, I'm usually pretty proud of myself. I'm like, well done. Exactly. Carry on. But you just scared the shit out of them for a moment.
But you may be the first person that I know that really grasps that. You know, they're just trying to. I would point to you take England 100 years ago, pre-World War I and II, where we took all their money. This was back when they were just taking your money. But you look at, so they had great educational system. They had all of this stuff pre-built. It was all free, and you had to test to get in. Okay. When my cousins came over here, they'd be like, so every one of you goes to university? And I'm like, well, it's just college, but you know, anybody can go, right? Like all you got to do is pay. He goes, no. I mean, God, you know, so few people make it in England to university.
Yeah, I'm like, there's a GED there, right? That you have to take before you get through.
Yeah, before you can move through. And over here, if you got through high school, you can go to community college. I mean, you don't have to even be in the top. Actually, if you're in the lower 10%, you can still go. You're not going to make it, but you know, you can go ahead and go. And I think you look at the vast amount of people you have in India, there's no way more than 5% end up going to university. They just can't. You have too many people.
Can I tell you the weird part? It's actually the opposite.
Really?
So back when I would say like, this is not even long ago, Sean. This is like mid to late 90s. Yeah. There was a time where I would know the name of all the, say, good English schools here in Bangalore. Right. There were like only 8 or 10. Like those were the ones everybody went to. And now when I came back, there are hundreds of them. So everybody goes. I don't know the quality of education in each of those universities because now they're not like the old school ones. These are all private money-making institutes. So they say that they'll give you a placement after you graduate, but I don't know how many kids are getting placed. But now they have to pay their way through.
Wow. So it's no longer free. Oh God, yeah. So is the old school original
we're still churning out massive amounts of graduates.
Really? Okay, but compared to 1.7 billion people, is it massive? You just run in that circle. You're not running in a circle with everybody else.
Yeah.
So
I do feel guilty about that little bubble that I live in.
Well, that's all right. Hey, man, there's no, you know, you earned it. You know, over here, so we have 15% of the population will go on to a secondary college. So university or college. And then we have about another 7 that will do a trade school, which over here they still list you as going to college, which makes no sense whatsoever. But they do.
Is that like
or a community? Yeah, or a community college because we have good VOTEC here. You know, if you want to do that, the Germans start way earlier. I mean, they've got a better. They probably have the best system I've seen. You know, they start seeing what you're good at and aim you towards it.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. They don't push you. They just aim you. No pun intended. No pun intended.
Damn Germans.
Just can't say anything about the Germans without it going to war.
No, I was just going to say that's like really weird, like to the point where I talk to like certain people who are like working with, say, MNCs, like multinational companies who have their offices here in Bangalore, and they complain about how expensive their 5-6-year-old kids' nursery to like second grade is. And I'm like, really? And they tell me like the name of the school and I don't even recognize it. I'm like, Jesus, when did all these new schools come up?
That's crazy. Well, I mean, I think here we've got education reform going from really not the smartest people, which just scares you.
Oh God, that
Yeah,
idiot.
yeah, exactly. Not the smartest people telling you they're going to reform something they don't really know much about. It's awesome. But so I sent my kids to like a Montessori school, and it was as much as University of Oklahoma, and they were 3, 4, and 5. Yeah, same deal. But what you're looking for is I wanted an experience where they learned a bunch of different stuff. I didn't want the traditional little Catholic school format, where it's just this, it's this, it's this, and you get out.
Yeah, that way you raise them to be more of global citizens than just live on that 1 block radius and die.
Right.
It was hilarious. There were so many times I would run into people in New York who they had lived only in that block their entire life.
Right. Their whole life. I know, it's crazy, isn't it? Yeah. It is. But I can tell you so many people in Oklahoma don't travel anywhere here. I mean, they don't go out. They don't see the need to go outside of the state.
You're talking about, I've seen people take cruises, which is a lovely non-holiday holiday.
Right. That's a hotel where you don't get a DUI for drinking too much. You just fall over the rail. It's the ultimate punishment for over drinking. You die at sea. So have you been on a cruise? I was on a cruise in Alaska, and all you do all day is eat because there's nothing else to do.
At least you were near Alaska. Like, think about the miserable people who just go off the coast of Florida and come back. There are quite a few times where I was invited to them. And I was like, dude, what are we doing? Are we going to a different country? They're like, no, they just take us, circle around, and they drop us back. And I was like, can I not just do that from a boat in like 30 minutes and get back inside?
So here's what I always compared it to. If you get off an airplane in San Francisco and you say, hey, I need to go down to this building, you're going to get that same tour. They're going to drive a circle around San Francisco, charge you an extra $40, and then you're off. And I'm like, so it was a cruise, but only $40.
And also off the coast of Miami, I wanted to tell them, listen, I'm not the right kind of brown that should be in this waters. Put me back on land.
That's terrible. So, the one thing that I would say of people that like to do that, they like to drink a lot and they like to eat a lot. And the food, quite frankly, how good can the food be on a floating hotel with 5,000 or 10,000 people? And they're like, yeah, but there's a water park on the hotel. And I go, did you get in your swimsuit and go do it? And they're like, oh, God, no. We just sat in the room and drank. And I'm like, I think Leaving Las Vegas, the movie, is the same thing. They sat in a hotel and drank.
Yeah. If you ask him, how was your entire life? I think Nicolas Cage in that movie would have been like, yeah, I sat in a room and drank most of the time. I always enjoyed and always have enjoyed going to other countries and trying to you got to figure out your way. And I've only been afraid I was going to get kidnapped or killed a few times, but I feel that way here sometimes, so it's no different. But I think the comfort level of the average person in our state here in Oklahoma is they're more comfortable with just people that sound like they do, and you go, well, do you want to go try some of this? Oh God, I don't know about that. That means no. Somebody says I don't know about that. That means it's not happening. But I enjoy it. Only because I was around you that I met the normal ones. I'm calling them normal, but just regular people who are interested in other people's cuisine, things like that.
Well, but what I would say to people who aren't familiar with my background or anything, so I own an Irish pub, and very rarely, other than Deepak, would anybody be on a computer or a phone in my place. But he always was on his phone or his computer. But the deal is it's a place to converse. And so if you don't have anything good to say, you got to kind of come up with something. And so they go do stuff, not necessarily just to come in here and talk, but you hear all these other people talking about all of these things they do. It gives you a little energy to maybe move towards that direction. Is that fair?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you were already a world traveler. I'd never heard of the Mauritius Islands in my life till I heard of you guys. Yeah. And think of how important it is. Yeah, and how important it is financially. I've never even heard of it. Yeah.
Oh, sure.
And pronounce your name correctly.
Deepak
This is
Jayakrishnan.
Deepak Jarakrishnan. Did I say it right that time? Fuck, I know it's close.
Yeah. Say Jai.
Jai.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Krishna.
Christian. Jai Christian. There's no T in there, is there? Okay, here's what I will say to you. As much as anybody, if you keep this piece in there, as much as anybody will laugh at me, our name in Gaelic has like 15 letters.
Oh, dude,
And
I've tried saying Gaelic names and I can't do it.
None of it makes any sense. It's like, and you're like, I think he just spit up on me.
Oh, the poor man's having a stroke. No, he's telling you his name.
So yeah, and that's our legitimate name, but it's it's from the Norse, either Norway or Sweden or a little further up. Hell, you got it easy. At least yours sounds like the letters.
Yes, it does. It's fun when I have to fill them out in the US immigration forms when my full name doesn't fit. So I'm like the margin trying to squeeze it in.
That's awesome. All right, man. Well, as usual, wonderful talking to you. I miss hanging out with you. Are you going to radio take us out? Give me the BBC. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. The Sean Cummings, Deepak Stan. Sorry, I can never get that right.
Just don't do it, please.
I'm gonna get it right.